Did you know that nearly 80% of native speakers make at least one common grammar mistake every single day? It's true. Perfect English is rarer than a peaceful Saturday morning in a house with 4 kids. Tying this bow tie actually reminds me of these mistakes. I know, I make it look simple, but until you actually try it and try to do it under pressure, like, ooh, I got to do it right now, the mistakes happen. So it's the same thing with English. One tiny twist, one tiny word, and suddenly your sentence means something completely different. Here's an example. I once had a client who sent an email that said, I have less ideas today. Less ideas. Now, this is a mistake because ideas are countable, so you got to use the word fewer, not less. And so that's why his boss jokingly replied, well, hopefully tomorrow you have fewer. That one kind of hurt. He's not a very nice boss, kind of sarcastic, but it is what it is. So here's a quick tip. When you're not sure, slow down, double check, whether it's your bow tie or your grammar. All right, today, stick around because we are going to fix some of the everyday mistakes that even native speakers make. And of course, wait to the end for the Mastery Minute because it's a good one. It's going to tie this all together. And don't forget, drop your questions in the chat, and I will get to those after the Mastery Minute. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and Lynn will be all set. Now this tie is all set, and let's make sure your English is all set too, while I tell you about Sarah. Now Sarah, she is a brilliant project manager. She's an excellent communicator. But one day during a team meeting, she said, oh, these numbers are different than last quarter. Well, it doesn't sound like a mistake, right? But her director caught it, and he said, different from. Ooh, talk about embarrassing. The whole room went quiet, and everything was awkward. Sarah froze and forgot what was happening. Now, it wasn't a big mistake, but that comment from the boss threw off her whole presentation. Later on, she told me, hey, Dennis, I know my English is good, but these tiny mistakes make me feel like I'm being judged. And here's the truth. These are not mistakes that you can fix in school, but they are mistakes that you can fix in real life, in emails, meetings, and conversations. And once you understand them, they're easy. So today we're going to break down the most common ones and how to fix them instantly. All right, let's dive in and get right in with the big troublemakers. They're mistakes that appear everywhere. Yes, in emails, okay, from managers, executives, and even native speakers. So don't beat yourself up. The goal here is to help you progress, not to be perfect. All right? Why does this even matter? Because these little slip-ups subtly affect how clear and polished your message feels. So, in a fast-moving environment like a workplace, clarity helps you to build trust. So, fixing these mistakes will help your ideas land more smoothly. But I want to say, don't stress over them. If native speakers make these mistakes every day, you're not expected to be perfect either. The goal is progress, not perfection. So think of these corrections as a little upgrade. Just like tightening your tie just before a big meeting. It's not essential for survival, but definitely nice for making a strong impression. So let's start with that one we just used in the previous example. Different from versus different than. In British and International English, the standard is different from. For example, this version is different from the last one. But why is there confusion? Well, because we Americans often use the expression different than, and that's where people get mixed up. In fast speech, you're going to hear both, but in professional English, especially in international environments, different from is more safer and more polished. It's a better choice. Okay? You know, I once had a client who delivered a presentation where he kept saying, our results are different than last year. Small mistake, but afterwards, a colleague said, just so you know, in formal English, we usually say different from. Now, he was a British person, so, what can I say? He wasn't trying to be critical. He was trying to give some friendly guidance. But he told me that he spent the rest of the day replaying that moment in his head. And you don't need that kind of stress in your life. So if you're using business English internationally, stick with from. And now that we've cleared that up, let's tackle a pair that confuses even native speakers. All right? Because this one shows up in emails every day. Now, what is this about? Less versus few. Well, the first rule here is we use less for uncountable nouns, like less time, less water, or I need to drink less coffee. But we use fewer for countable nouns, like fewer mistakes or fewer applicants. And people mess this up all the time. Why? Even native speakers get lazy with this stuff. So a student once told me, I feel like I made less mistakes today. Well, I knew what he meant, but the team leader corrected him and said, hey, you're improving, but those are fewer mistakes. So my student told me later, Dennis, I wish English came with a user's manual. So why does this matter? In casual conversation, no one is judging you for mixing these up. But if you're writing, especially in professional emails, using fewer with plural nouns makes your message look sharp, like we had fewer applicants this quarter. All right, now that we've trimmed that down, let's move to another pair. This causes confusion for the exact same reason, countable versus uncountable. So the rule here, many and much, or much versus many. With many, we use that with countable nouns. With much, it's with uncountable nouns. Like we have many options, or not many options, or not much time. There's many people, there's many jobs. But if you have much time, much work, much effort, because you can't count those things. I had a student once told me, I don't have many work today. And I laughed and I told him, well, if you have many work, that means you have several jobs. And you need to teach me your system. Why does this matter? Because mixing these doesn't break communication, but getting them right helps your English feel more natural and more smooth. So now that we've sorted that out, let's jump into a tiny apostrophe that causes giant confusion sometimes. And we make this mistake, I make this mistake on occasion. And it is it's versus its. Okay? It's with no apostrophe. That is possessive. It means it's owned by something. It's owned by it. All right? Whereas it with an apostrophe, it's is a contraction of it is. We're connecting the two words. Even native speakers make this mistake. Even the office grammar police. Okay? Speaking of the grammar police, there's a story I heard about a team lead who posted in the Slack, oh, the system will update on its own. Uh-oh, he put the apostrophe in there. Immediately, the grammar police swooped in and replied, on it is own? Grammar police, am I right? Complete with a GIF and a detective holding a magnifying glass. The whole channel started making grammar jokes for the rest of the afternoon. And it's a little embarrassing, right? Why does this matter? Because people should focus on your message, not your apostrophe. Just remember, if you can replace it with it is, then you use the apostrophe. If not, if you're talking about something that belongs to someone or something, use no apostrophe. All right, the next one is I look forward to meet you. Oops, back here. I look forward to meet you. Well, it's incorrect to say I look forward to meet you. The correct thing to say would be, I look forward to meeting you. Why? Because to here is a preposition, not an infinitive. So it must be followed by a noun or a gerund, which is a word with an ing at the end. In this case, meeting. I had a conference where I was helping a guy prepare to make his speech, and he said, I look forward to meet you all. Great energy for him, but the wrong structure. So I told him before he went on stage. And afterwards he said, Dennis, thank you. You know, I would have said that in front of 500 people. So, and speaking of greetings and conversations, here's a classic debate. Yes, it is. I'm good versus I'm well. Grammar purists love this one, but here's the simple version. I'm good is about how you feel, your emotion or your mood. I'm well is how your health is. You know, I had someone who I was coaching responded to me, or not who I was coaching, I was talking to somebody, and I said, hey, how are you? And he responded with, I am well. It was so dramatic that I felt like I was talking to a Shakespearean actor. Not necessary. Most people just use I'm good because it sounds friendly and more natural. And now that we've cleared that up, we're going to talk about one. I talked a little bit about this on Wednesday. Could you borrow me? Okay, remember, borrow is when you receive something. Can I borrow your charger? That's the correct way to say it. Not could you borrow me your charger? Because I want to receive it from you. Lend is when you want to give or you give something to them. Could you lend me your charger? That's the correct way. Not could you borrow me? I had a neighbor buddy once say, hey, Dennis, can you borrow me your lawnmower? And I told him, buddy, I can lend it to you, but I can't borrow from myself. All right? And so we laughed, and he said to me later, English is confusing sometimes. Why can't borrow go both ways? So mixing these up doesn't confuse meaning too much, but using them correctly makes your English sound more polished. Okay? And all right, we're going to go to the final round. Let's look at a mistake that shows up when people try to sound extra formal, but end up doubling the grammar. So, what's the point here? The bonus mistake. I have a question regarding about. I've heard this so many times. We don't double up. Regarding about. You only need one. Okay, so the correct would be, I have a question about, like a question about the timeline. Or you could say, I have a question regarding the timeline. You just don't double up those prepositions because you don't get bonus points for stacking. I once helped a client prepare an important email to a partner company. She proudly read her draft aloud and said, I have a question regarding about the timeline. She paused and looked at me and said, that sounded heavier than it should, didn't it? Yeah, exactly. Doubling prepositions makes a sentence feel clunky, like wearing two neckties at the same time. While it may technically be possible, it's not stylish. It's clunky. So this helps you keep your grammar simple and clean, and your message will flow more smoothly. But again, don't stress. This is one of the easiest fixes in English. Once you notice it, you'll never stack them again. All right, let's wrap it all up with a little reminder. The real lesson here is that tiny corrections create big confidence. We're not aiming to be perfect. Aim for clear, polished English. And remember, native speakers make these mistakes all the time. So when you fix them, you won't sound robotic and you'll start sounding more professional. Now, your challenge for today is choose one of today's mixed mistakes and fix it in your next message, email, chat, or conversation. And if you want a bigger list or want more, you can check out the full blog link below. And if you're ready to level up your English in just 10 minutes a day, check out my course, Mastering English for Busy Professionals. You'll find the link also in the description and the chat. And remember, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this episode so we can help more learners. And now's the perfect time, if you're here, to drop your questions in the chat. Because why? Because it's time for the Mastery Minute. All right. So, did you ever send a message feeling totally confident about it and then later discover 3 mistakes hiding in plain sight? Those didn't appear magically. They slipped through the cracks. Okay? The origin of this phrase actually comes from the old idea of small objects falling between wooden floorboards, so tiny that you don't notice them until they're already gone. It slipped through the cracks. What it means now is something important was missed or overlooked or ignored, usually by accident. And honestly, this idiom is perfect for today's topic because small grammar mistakes often slip through the cracks when we're typing fast, multitasking, or trying to think in 2 languages at once. So, for example, my Slack message was clear overall, but a few small mistakes slipped through the cracks. So instead of beating yourself up over every tiny mistake, this idiom gives you a calm, professional way to acknowledge them. Now you can simply say, a couple of things slipped through the cracks. I'm fixing them now. Okay? This shows that you're confident and responsible and aware. Exactly what great communicators bring to the table. All right? And that is a wrap for today, episode 94. Tonight we fixed the everyday English mistakes that sneak into your emails and conversations, and now you know exactly how to avoid them. And next week on Monday, we'll be exploring some fun, natural ways to talk about being hungry, because English has a whole menu of expressive alternatives that you can make your everyday conversations more colorful and more fluent. So, until then, keep your bow tie straight, stay curious, and I'm Dennis Wilborn. I'll see you next time on 15-Minute Mastery.